Welcome to EEM's 5511 podcast, hosted by Dirk Smith and myself, Brooke Kale. Our heart is to share stories of God's power being poured out through the lives of ordinary people around the world. Our conversations here are inspired by Isaiah 55:11, where we're reminded that God's word never returns void. It always accomplishes his purpose. In each episode, you'll hear how God is transforming hearts, bringing hope, and fulfilling his purposes in the most profound ways. In this episode of the podcast, EEM's Vice President of European Operations, Bart Rybinski, joins us to reflect on some of the challenges and victories of 2024. From wrapping up big projects to expanding Bible distribution to the Middle East, we discuss the moments that stretched our faith and the partnerships that made it all possible. Bart shares powerful stories of how access to Scripture is transforming lives, the importance of trust and relationships in ministry, and what it means to follow the Spirit's lead, even when the path is uncertain. Tune in for an honest conversation about faith in action, the impact of generosity, and how God continues to open doors in unexpected ways.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this podcast. Welcome back to the 5511 podcast. Today, we're excited to have Bart Rybinski, our colleague, and our VP of European Operations, all the way from Vienna, Austria, with us today. And looking forward to the conversation and just talking about some of the exciting things from 2024 and looking ahead to 2025. So, Bart, good to see you, my friend, and welcome.
Yeah, it's so great to be with you guys. I heard this last year a lot more from my friends, how much they enjoy listening to the podcast. So I think the audience is growing and more people say, hey, I was really encouraged by what I heard. So thank you for what you're doing with this. This is fantastic to get the word out.
Well, it's our prayer is that God's story gets told, and we've had some great guests, and you being one of those. So we're excited about this conversation and to see where God takes it. Man, 2024, crazy year all the way around here in the States and there in Europe. I mean, a lot of exciting things. Looking back, any one moment in 2024 that just stands out where you go, yeah, if somebody were to ask me, tell me about 2024, that's the thing that comes to your mind.
Well, for me, I mean, this may be a little bit surprising, but, I think there are moments when you have some potentially difficult conversations with people that you love. And those are no fun conversations, but they really reveal a lot about the strength of your relationship and the strength of character. And so, as you know, we sadly had to basically conclude our Ukraine aid program. I mean, we're still hoping to give a little bit, but as an effort, organized effort, we kind of brought it to conclusion. And, so many of our partners in Ukraine depended on the help we provided, we channeled from our donors. And so we had just a number of very difficult, heartbreaking conversations with people that, are still on the front lines, still risking their lives, wearing their vests and helmets to go and deliver food and evacuate people from the front lines of this terrible war. And, to tell them, we'll try to continue to help, but probably not going to be coming as much as, these last 2 or 3 years. That was difficult. And so we were bracing ourselves for some very raw emotions and disappointment and, maybe even anger. Man, none of that happened. Mm-hmm. All our partners, just the outpouring of love and appreciation for what EM has done has been incredible. And some of the words that they express in that difficult moment of finding out, we no longer will continue to help them at the scale we have, just really, humbled me. The maturity, the love, and the relationship that we're able to bond, to establish in such a short but intense time. And some of them are brand new partners. 3 years ago, we had no idea they existed, these ministries, these people from Poland, from Ukraine, other countries that work with refugees, just saying, these kids would not be alive if not for the help you offered. So this is not core of what we do. This has always been kind of an addition. But I think if I can think a moment that defined 2024 for me, that was it. Just realizing, if people know your heart and they know where you stand, and even if you have to end something, you can do it with dignity and preserving love, and that not be discouraging. I think there is lesson to be learned in a political realm right now with things happening, for how you when you have to end things, how to do it right. And I'm so proud of our Ukrainian team that dealt with that most on day-to-day basis, how they handle it with dignity and the maturity that both sides showed. So that just affected me deeply. That came right at the end of the year, right before Christmas. But that was kind of the Christmas present that I wanted to get and did get, the news that our partners accepted difficult decision well.
Yeah, that was a tough. I mean, a tough call, and for listeners, I mean, it wasn't because we didn't want to keep doing it. Honestly, it was funding just shut off, and that was a very sad scenario for me in 2024. That reality, and just how politicized some of that became, and very, very tragic in my mind that somehow we politicized the Good Samaritan. And I don't know how we did that. I don't know how, as believers, we do that. But somehow people equated they're not liking funding that was coming from the U.S. government to the Ukrainian government. They equated that with money that they would give to provide somebody clothing, bedding, medicine, food. I mean, the necessities of life that other human beings, other children of God that they share this planet with were doing without, as they sat in the comfort of their home, not lacking food, not lacking electricity, the basics that we all need to survive. So that was hard. That was hard. It was hard to just see that water faucet just turning off, and then some reactions from people, almost negative from some people towards us for even wanting to provide help. That was hard. It was hard to hear, and I just challenge our listeners, really go through and read the parable of the Good Samaritan again. And I do think it's duplicital. It's not only taking care of whoever is there, but it's also, as the person who's injured, accepting it from whoever comes along. It's both sides, and boy, I don't know. I think God is glorified no more. I mean, I don't think He's glorified any more than when we, as His disciples, do that and really do it well. It's a statement to the people of Ukraine and our partners that they didn't get angry. I mean, they're grateful people. They're beautiful people. I tell people this all the time. I mean, they are great human beings, and just trying to protect their country, which, I mean, who of us, especially as Americans, wouldn't do that? And wouldn't want our sovereignty, and so I was thrilled to hear that, and that is a definite high point, because that's the heart of Jesus right there.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is exactly, my point is the beauty of God influencing people of Ukraine in such a powerful way, despite this difficult ongoing situation and the fear and everything, to the point where they can say, this is not the news I wanted to hear, but thank you, repeatedly, and hey, please continue to send us Bibles. Even if you can't send money, at least please send us the Bibles, because that's even more important in some ways to what they're doing. That just, man, there is power of God in that. So I didn't want to start on a really somber note, but it is, I think it is a learning moment for us in the West, and I don't mean just America. Same in Austria and Poland, other places. We have it so comfortable, and we forget. We have a luxury of all these arguments and political debates, and there is room for that. But man, like you said, parable of Samaritan, of Good Samaritan. You what we're doing individually is different from what's happening in politics, and so I would also encourage our listeners, regardless of your political beliefs, make sure you're still helping people that are affected by this. And there are people in Russia that also are suffering. They're not for this war.
Oh,
We've said
yeah,
that before.
absolutely.
So this is not just Ukrainians, but it's primarily Ukrainians. I mean, I would say 95% or more Ukrainian than the other side. But still, we need to help all those who are suffering.
No, I'm just glad you started out the episode with this because I think it just humanizes the people that we work with and shows, like you said, it shows how the Word of God has impacted those that we're working with. And it also just really challenges me to challenge others and think about we're just helping suffering individuals, and we're not talking about a pie in the sky political situation that sometimes we get caught up in arguments about. And I think this is so important right now to start the conversation and to keep the conversation going.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And remember how we end things matters, so we can, whether politically or individually, none of us can sustain things for eternity. That those are hard decisions of life, but you can do it in a way that preserves relationship and dignity, and in a way that destroys that. I pray that we will do it in a dignified way if it has to be done. So anyway, it was deeply impactful to see that for me.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a downer to start on. Honestly, I think that's a foundational, and it seems to come up on the podcast a lot, Brooke. With guests, and it's interesting with Bart, who is our colleague and part of our team. The foundational question there is, what kingdom do I live in? What really drives my decisions in how I act and react? What causes me to react? Is it God's word? Is it the Spirit that's living in me? Or is it some political influence? Is it some other community that I'm a part of? And again, I'm not anti, laws and things of that nature, but we have to be driven first and foremost by Jesus. I mean, if he's truly living in us, that's what has to pour forth. And I think it's a good call to all of us to really pull back, and whenever something's going on, to really pray into it and say, man, Jesus lived through me in this. What do you want me to do? What would you do? It's the old, overused, but the bracelet things that we used to wear, WWJD, but it's so true. It's so true. If he's truly living in us, it shouldn't have to be a thought. It should just pour forth. And so it doesn't need to be political. It shouldn't be political. And I think if our political party is driving my decision making, if that's the first place I think about, I need to repent. I need to come back in and really decide which kingdom am I truly living in. So I don't think it's a negative. I think it's a beautiful picture of the partnership. And as you said, Bart, you mentioned Russia. I mean, we love the people in Russia. We've got dear, dear friends in Russia. And it's just a tragic situation all the way around. I mean, just put things aside, and we get to, and I thank God for this all the time, we get to just love the people. We get to just love them and get to know them and really embrace them and meet people who are absolutely in love with Jesus in all of these countries, who are just all in disciples. And to me, that encourages my faith on a regular basis, to see that.
Yeah, and I think even the way that your team handled things, Bart, just accepted the invitation to trust God in the next step of the process, and just shows us a lot about what it looks like to do something that's really difficult, to break news that's really difficult, and then to see also the people that you were talking to, their invitation to trust God and how they accepted it and how that was shown in their response. So, yeah, it just kind of it makes me think about the invitations of trust in the decisions that I have to make in my own life and how I respond and how other people respond. But yeah, I just think it says a lot about the heart of our European team and your heart behind your work. And I so appreciate that.
Well, it's like you said. I mean, for me, what an amazing thing to learn from. What an amazing example that, if I were in that situation, would I have reacted that way? And then realizing, hey, you can choose how you react. You can. It's ultimately a decision. It's to, raise above your emotions and kind of, how you just want to maybe lash out or whatever and just say, no, we're going to do it right on both sides. And so again, for me, that's very humbling, learning moment. I mean, I'm about, turn to 50, and man, I need to learn that lesson, and all of us need to learn that lesson, as a society, as a country, as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Have there been any other partnerships, unexpected partnerships or opportunities that have opened doors for Bible distribution this year, kind of to carry on the conversation?
Yeah, so actually, it kind of ties back in with the podcast because last September, one of our team members went to a gathering of Christian publishers in Switzerland that's hosted by our good friends at Biblicon. And during the meeting there, he met a believer from Iran who, when he found out about what we're doing, he got very excited and told us, "Hey, let's get in touch." And so that contact was passed to me, and so we set up a call. And on that call, this gentleman from Iran invited his CEO of his organization, a lady by the name of uh, Lana, right? And
Lana
she,
Silk.
did I pronounce it correctly? Yes, Lana.
Lana
And,
Silk.
yeah, that's right. And as we were talking, about 5 minutes into kind of introduction, she says, "Now, are you friends with Dirk Smith and Brooke Kell?" And I said, "Yeah, they're, they're my colleagues. We work together." And she said, "Well, I was just on a podcast with them talking about work in Iran." And I was thinking, what an amazing connection that from God was working from two sides. I mean, this was just probably like what, within a month or two since you guys had her on podcast, just kind of randomly because we haven't really cooperated with them directly before. And then we meet her ministry partner or one of her teammates in Europe and make a connection. Anyway, the result of that is that this year in 2025 we are going to help them publish their Gilaki language New Testament. And Gilaki is a language 6 months ago I didn't know existed, honestly, but now I know
Yeah.
that's actually a language spoken by several million speakers in Iran, and especially northern Iran, closer to Turkey and Azerbaijan, that area. So it's a large language group, and as far as we understand, they have not had full New Testament in their language, and Lana and her ministry, Transform Iran, are working on it, finishing the translation. So we're going to help them do the layout and print it, and they're going to take it to Iran. They're going to get it into hands of Iranian people at the end of this year at some point. So this was completely unexpected, but man, what a blessing! And we've always said, hey, our core mission is Eastern and Central Europe, but if God is opening door in areas adjacent, why not? And I don't want to get into too much details about how they operate, but some of the areas where they take Bibles from into Iran are areas where we already operate. So we have contacts to deliver Bibles there, and this is going to be a beautiful thing. I mean, just really, really exciting. And this is maybe second things, maybe not unexpected, but just really encouraging. I had a privilege of going to Turkey for the second time in the last couple of years. And my first visit was very exploratory, just meeting some people. But this time I actually got to spend some time with Turkish Christians and listening to their stories and what they're working. I'm very excited about what we're doing and how we're helping them, and the opportunity that's there. How many people in Turkey are turning to Christ, quite honest, or turning to studying about Christ, which was very surprising to me. I did not know the interest, so I've been blessed.
Well, and that's exciting because of just the biblical history, you know. If you look at that land. Yeah, the Lana Silk thing was fun. I have to admit, that was, we just thoroughly enjoyed having her on the podcast, and such a great heart. I mean, we had some fantastic conversations with her. We had some conversation after the podcast that I honestly wished had been recorded on the podcast. I told her later, I said, Lana, I got to have you back on. We're just going to talk about this and bring it into the podcast.
She's a wise woman.
She really is. She really is, and just so dedicated, and committed to sharing the gospel, which obviously we're all about. So yeah, that was fun. That was a fun story to see and to be reminded that it's not about us. This is the Spirit of God working through that. He knew that if we responded, this was gonna happen. We've seen some fun partnerships like that. Over the years that you really have to take a step back and go, okay, God, wow, we're listening. We're with you. Here we go. Have no idea where this is going, but we're going to trust you. We're going to trust you, and we're going to move faithfully and boldly through this. So, I was very excited to learn about that one.
Yeah, and this really goes hand in hand with what we've always said, the kind of ministry we want to be, and we want to follow the Spirit. We don't want to manufacture things. We don't want to just distribute books just for the sake of pumping up numbers and impressing anybody. We've always said, hey, we're gonna follow the Spirit, and that means maybe one year we do less, and another year we do more. And when you and of course we're seeking, we're knocking, we're praying, we're doing all the things that the Bible tells us we should do as believers. But ultimately, when you have situations like that, where it's so clear that the Spirit was already preparing that relationship, pulling strings, arranging that, putting us in position not only to have the right contacts, but also be in the right place at the right time. Man, that's amazing. That just gives you just faith that we can trust the Spirit to guide us. We can trust the Spirit to lead this ministry, and it's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, it stirs my faith 100%, because I know a year ago at one of our team meetings in Vienna, we were talking about, okay, we think God is calling us to expand in some different directions, but we kind of want to wait and see how that settles and where the Spirit leads. And like you said, that was just brought right to us. It was almost too easy. Yeah. And anyways,
it sounds easy. Yeah, it sounds easy, but
it's not. But it was.
Yeah, no. I'm with you. It's kind of like, oh, I'll take this, but you realize this was, years of faithfulness of Alana and her team to do this translation. They happen to also be close partners with Biblica.
Yeah.
So it's like with everything, when you put the faithful work behind the scenes, the things that look easy on the surface, and it's beautiful and it happens, but it does take a lot of sacrifice of faithful people like Alana and people from Transform Iran. So we're so thankful for them.
Yeah. It's amazing to see how God has positioned that ministry, and then at the time where they're able to cross paths with us and us them, and how your team has been faithfully serving and been prepared to do a project like this, and their team as well. And just imagine the millions of people now we're going to be able to impact with a new language. I'm just so excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, we'll start with 3,000 this year, but it will be millions. It will be millions.
I'm just speaking that.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's what I'm thinking too. It will be millions.
It will be.
Maybe not in with our lifetime, but it will be millions.
Anybody listening to just grasp about this, we're talking about the New Testament, that guaranteed everybody who is listening to this has one, has a full Bible, has multiple translations sitting on their shelf, and we're talking about the opportunity to give a people group for the first time in their lives, the New Testament, the full New Testament in their heart language, in this language. I never cease to be encouraged, amazed, just absolutely humbled by that. And that God is still working so diligently. And we get to be a part of it. And those who support EEM. So I'm going to put a plug in. We've got our Bibles for Kids campaign. It's going to kick off March 1st. And it's the opportunity to provide 600,000 children's and teen Bibles in a lot of these languages. And these are kids I'll never forget my first trip to Ukraine. This impacted me and will never not be impactful in my heart. But I don't know if you remember this, Barton. You were there. All these books came into this library. They'd been delivered to the library because that's, the amazing thing. The cool thing about Ukraine is the second most important person in the school system is a librarian. Go figure. I wish that were true in the U.S. But, we go in there and it's freezing cold. It's like February and man, it was cold. And these little kids all pile in. And I can't remember the guy who was our escort and kind of leading us around. And he was kind of translating for us too. But he looked at those kids, you remember, and he said, "Hey kids, share with our American friends your favorite Bible story." And these little kids got deer in the headlights. And at first we all thought, well, they're just embarrassed, And then it hits us. I think all of us, they don't have any favorite Bible stories.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do a word association game with them and I say David, they're not going to say Goliath. Or if I even say Adam, they're not going to say Eve. They got nothing. And the weight of that sat down on me in a way because I thought about my kids. And now I've got a granddaughter and I'm thinking about my granddaughter. I mean, to grow up and never know these stories. I mean, it's so, I hope people hear that. And yeah, it's going to be a plug because you will be blessed by being involved in this. That's the bottom line. You're out of control. $5 in this campaign will provide 2 children's Bibles. And what an opportunity to share that, and someday it's going to be Galaki. It's going to be a Galaki children's Bible. And these little children are going to get to read about their Creator and their Savior for the first time ever. And again, this is the parable of the sower. Where's it going to go? We have no idea. We have no idea where that's going to go and who it's going to impact. Just like the happenstance, I'm doing air quotes for people who are listening, happenstance connection with Lana Silk. That's not an accident. That's not. It's spirit-led. And all of these interactions that take place, that's what makes, for me, that's what makes this work so much fun. It's just so much fun to watch God move. Tell me, Bart, about the team. I mean, you talked about, opened up with some of the Ukrainian partners, but we have Ukrainian team members. And I mean, anything that you saw in the team this year, our team that because I get this, I get encouraged by the U.S. team all the time and our donor stories. Was there any story that they brought to you or that you heard that just really encouraged you or encouraged them that they shared? I wanted to take some time to thank those watching our podcast on Pray TV through the Pray.com app. We've been deeply moved by your response to the podcast. I'm EEM Vice President Dirk Smith, and I invite those on the Pray.com app or those interested in exploring the app to follow the EEM channel to stay updated on the latest stories. And leave a testimonial of how this content is impacting you, please. You can find all of our podcast episodes directly on our channel. Thanks again for watching, and we can't wait to share more inspiring stories with you.
I think it's more for me watching them, especially the team that we have here in Vienna, because 3 of our team members evacuated. They're still here with us, and we're very thankful for this unexpected gift of their presence. But watching them function more as work colleagues, more as ministry, more than church members, really functioning almost like a family, taking care of each other, whether it's doctor's visits and this or that childcare, and also by extent the 2 or 3 team members that we still have in Ukraine, the men that did not leave, and one of them had been drafted, and just the care that they provided, visiting, sending care packages, encouragement. Again, this is, when things are comfortable, we're kind of doing our own thing, and, we have kids' activities and this and that, things to do. But when there's a need, this community of Christ believers, Christ followers, disciples, really coming around together and serving one another and encouraging one another, it's been great, and this has been a difficult year. This ending of our program affected them deeply, but again, the maturity that they've shown in understanding why and what's happening, even if they don't like it, if they don't agree with that, just been very, very encouraging. I can't tell you enough about Vanya and Sasha and now Andre, new team member in Ukraine that we have, that are just every day going out, delivering the Bibles, helping our partners, getting reports, filing out expense reports. I mean, all the stuff that it takes to get this work completed. Incredible, so it's really, I just see their actions beyond what they say, and it's again great example of Christian community that they formed.
Bart, it makes me also think of a story that you shared. This didn't have to do with the team, but when you were talking, you shared with our U.S. team a little bit about a report from Poland. I think it would be great to share that with our audience. If you could just share a little bit about what might be going on in Poland specifically right now, and that one report that you shared with our team that really kind of stirred our faith at the meetings.
Yeah, so Poland, surprisingly, because it's a deeply traditionally Catholic country, but unfortunately, just like many countries where there's some traditional expression of faith, Bible reading was not encouraged, and in fact, was discouraged. I think I've shared the story with you guys personally, that my dad. I grew up in a Catholic family, and I know a lot of Catholic people that I deeply respect, but I to this day remember the time where my dad caught me reading from the Bible at home, and he said, "Oh, we don't do that. You need to be ordained to do this and understand. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily typical of Catholic, or this is 40 years ago, so things might have changed, but there is definitely that mentality where you just don't read God's word on your own. You wait for somebody to tell you what it means, which is not all bad, but I think you have to do both. You have to have kind of both pillars of your faith, where you use your own mind that God gave you, and also use wisdom of others that can teach you. And so so you have a country that is deeply Christian in one way, but also is deeply not into Bible in many ways. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, through some very good partnerships, our distribution in Poland has been booming. We're about to, for 2025, sign off on probably our largest project. That's not a school project, and that's, I think, close to 150,000 Polish Bibles, full adult Bibles. It's $500,000, more than $500,000 project, that we're getting ready to print. And so these Bibles are going out to ministries, and so one of our partners, one of the churches that received that, just wrote this beautiful note, just letting us, basically saying that making that point. Look, this is a Christian country, but you don't realize how few people have Bible, how few people read Bible, how few people can afford the Bible still, or would choose to use the money they have for the Bible, and especially churches. He said, yeah, there are a few churches that have resources, but most churches are small. They're just a few people gathering together, and they just don't have the money. And so he just said, this is such a powerful expression of love. These Bibles that you're giving us. His literal quote is, "Thank you. Poland will never forget your love." And to think, when you give the $5 for two children's Bible, or $5 for one adult Bible, that is agape. That is love. To our donors, this is not a check. This is not a paper. This is not just generosity. This is love. People take it as an expression of love. I couldn't put it in better words. So yeah, that was definitely, one of those thrilling things to hear, and just very, again, humbling and encouraging, especially coming from country where I grew up. Very excited about what's happening there.
Yeah, I loved that story.
Yeah, I do too. It's just such a great reminder of how it's received, and what it means, the impact that it's making on people. 2024, tough year for a lot of reasons. I mean, here we are jumping into 2025. I know I have my ways, and it's always we're okay. Here we go. We're back in it. More projects, more requests. Mm-hmm. They're coming in. They're flooding in. How do you stay motivated? I mean, is there one thing, or is it even a challenge? Is it one of those things like, man, it's not an issue at all? I mean, I'm just motivated. I mean, how do you keep up and because it's busy. I mean, we all know it. We burn the candle at both ends a lot of the time, and and for you guys, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of projects that get done. So, how do you do it?
Well, I think, like all of us, we're all human. We have good days and bad days. But honestly, I think for most of our team, if not for all our team, there's just a deep sense of, we're in the right place where God called us. There's a deep sense of personal mission and personal conviction, where you can't imagine yourself doing something else. Even if you could make more money and have, less stress or less responsibility, you just, God, I'm exactly where I need to be, and I want to continue on as long as you call me to do this. So that's one thing. I think you have to have internal motivation. I don't think you can do this work. I mean, you can do this work for financial gain. You will. A lot of the tasks are repetitive, so if you don't have that internal motivation, it can get dull. But if you realize, every layout that I check, every project I sign off, those are, expression of love, and lives change. People brought to Christ. Eternity changed for somebody. You remind yourself. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, and I'm going to borrow from our good friend Jonathan Macris from Hellenic Ministries in Greece. He told me several times, and he might have shared it with you. He always says, "Hey, it's the Spirit that guides us." We talked about it, but it's the fellowship that sustains us. And I think this last year especially, I will say, and I mean, we've always had great, team cooperation within our European team, between US and European team, our board. But I personally, just the support and encouragement I received from you guys, from the US side of operations, from our board, it's been incredible. I feel so motivated by just the expression of love and support, and knowing how much people care, that this just gives us fuel to go. And at the end of the year, we're kind of tired. We're ready for a break, but then we come in January and we look at this list of 150 or more projects. Like, hey, let's do this again. Let's do. And there are some new things that we have down the pipeline that are exciting. So you also look to those things. I mean, a lot of it is repetitive, but we're working right now on new artwork for the Children's Bible, and we've looked at a bunch of very talented artists, and so we're kind of narrowing down the choice, and so exciting to see that how talented people are that God created, and be a part of that. Some new layouts, new things that we do, new coloring books that we're developing. It's exciting to see, to think about the possibilities with these new things. So that's kind of two sides. One is internal, and one is definitely the fellowship that comes from outside that sustains our work.
I think that's great. Yeah, I would echo that. That's good. Yeah, I've told people for the first time in my life for the last, which is hard to believe, this is year 14. For the last 14 years, I haven't had a job. It's a mission. It's a calling, and and it's a gift. Recently brought a new person onto our team here, and that was his words. His specific skill set. I mean, he could, if he went out into the secular world, he could make a lot more money than we're able to provide to him. But it's his commitment. No, this is what I want to be doing. This is where I want to be. I want to make a difference in this world if I can. Yeah, I just don't know of anything more pure. I said that when I first, came to EEM. What's more pure than just giving somebody a Bible in their language? How does it get any more basic than that? As a believer. So, yeah, and the fellowship. I do. We have been blessed, and for those listening, I wish every listener, every viewer could meet our entire team. Mm-hmm. Because if you ever questioned whether this was God's mission and all about Him, you would cease asking that question once you met this team, because only God could assemble the team that we have. I mean, on both sides, and all of our partners. And I think about our donors that we have here that are just they're the family. They're part of the family, and they get it. They'll ask, "How did we do?" Because again, without them, it doesn't happen. It is one big family that gets to be a part of what God's doing. His miracle, we just get to be a part of it, which is the fun.
Yeah, it's so good. It has felt, being a part of this ministry, it just feels more like family every year, and I didn't think that was possible. But I think it just speaks to just everybody's heart, like you said, and the people who feel purpose behind doing this ministry and doing what God has called them to do, even in the kind of mundane tasks you were talking about. I know we all have these mundane tasks, but they're truly acts of love, and it's so special to work with other people who see ministry like that, just see purpose in living missionally in the mundane too, while we're also getting to hear about these beautiful testimonies and beautiful projects. Just people who are motivated in the day-to-day is really special.
Yeah, so her underlying message there was this mundane task she has of having to do this podcast with me. That's what it is.
No, it's not.
She was saying this mundane, I have to get on here with Dirk all the time and do these podcasts with him and prop him up and make sure he does a good job.
That explains exactly. why you're escaping to Europe for a few weeks right now, Dirk.
That's exactly right.
Rejuvenate with where the real action is.
Didn't know this was going to turn on me, so.
All right, so with our time that's left, we're kind of closing in on it. If you could give one message to the people who are our financial ministry partners, those who support this mission, what would it be?
I'll say two things. First is, thank you for your trust. Honestly, I thank you for entrusting us with your hard-earned resources. I want all our listeners to know, all our donors to know that, we start every day with prayer to be found trustworthy of what you've put on us. It's a huge burden for not just for me, for our entire staff to do right by your gifts, by your generosity. As we move sometimes very fast and grow very fast, we just never want to forget that we need to be good stewards of what you're trusting us with, and that's a huge burden on all of us. And so our commitment is as we grow to continue to produce the highest quality we have in a way that honors Christ, both through our personal actions and through our actions as a ministry, we want to be good stewards of the resources, and so thank you for trusting us, and I hope you will continue to trust us. And the second thing is, just to repeat what our partner from Poland said, thank you for your love. Thank you for your love. Your offerings are truly love offerings to a lot of people, and lives are changed. And the hardest part about this ministry is that we want to kind of say, okay, I do A and B happens, and sometimes it does, but a lot of times you may not see B till 10 years later, and then you hear about somebody coming around and saying, hey, because you did A, this is what happened. And so this kind of really teaching you to be patient and trust God, but we see enough of the people coming around saying, yeah, the B did happen, that we know it will, and it is happening and will continue to happen. So thank you for your love offering. It's being felt and appreciated by us and by our partners.
It's good. It's good. Anything that you feel like I've got to say this. I'm on the podcast, and what people may not know that. So here's the last word. Any last word that you would share that just burning on your heart to share with people. Anything?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the incredible group of people that God has blessed us with, and brag on our team here. We always, one of the challenges with growth, and Dirk, you'll resonate with this because we just had this lengthy discussion at board meeting, where our board members were just like, well, why don't you just hire more people? Well, we don't want to just hire more people because, for one thing, we're not like a business. I know a lot of our listeners, they're maybe owning businesses, and they also try to run their businesses in a different way that the world teaches you. And that's what we try to do. We don't just hire people so that, hey, when we have less resources, we can just fire them. We don't want to do that. We want to bring the right people and want them to be successful over a long period of time with this ministry. So finding right people, getting them to a point, it's hard. So like you said earlier, it's just amazing the group of people that got put together, and then in times of need that he somehow miraculously opens the door for us. And so this 2024 we just started a sense of we need to start expanding our team in areas of publishing and potentially new areas we want to go to in South Central Asia. I'm sorry, in Central Asia. And all of a sudden I get a email from one of our sister ministries that does similar work, and they say, hey, we unfortunately need to let go of one of our teammates, but here's his resume. If you have anything for them, we'd love to do that. And I was thinking, well, I don't know, not the right time. We don't have the money. Well, I look at his resume and I'm like, I mean, this is exactly what we've been praying for. How does this happen? Exactly, all the qualifications, connections, background. Somebody who's been involved in Central Asia already for many years, who has background in ministry. And I'm talking about Rostislav, and don't want to embarrass him in case he's listening, but just been incredible. And then to learn his story, that his father under the Soviet Union was actually having underground shop in Lviv, where some of the Bibles that were smuggled, some ministries, not EM, but other ministries would smuggle Bibles without covers. They would cut out the covers because it was easier to just smuggle the insides of the Bible than the whole thing. And so he had a shop where he would rebind those cut out Bibles into actual books. And so that's what our newest team member grew up watching for part of his life.
That's fantastic.
And it just, kind of an incredible, again, man, when God leads you to people like that, hey, this is fantastic. And somehow God continues to provide it. So it's not easy, but man, what an incredible feeling when that happens. And just very thankful for our team. All of members of our team are excellent. So, continue to pray for our people, please. I know you do. I also want to continue to ask our listeners to do that, because we need those prayers.
Yeah, I love God just keeps bringing the puzzle pieces together, and each story is so special. But yeah, on that note, is there anything else that we can pray for you, for the team, or just looking forward into 2025?
Yeah. Well, with this ongoing conflict, we are facing a lot of operational challenges with just getting money to certain areas and paying for printing and moving Bibles. So generally, I mean, we need to continue to pray for peace. And I'm thankful that there are efforts to do it. Like I said, we all hope that there will be good for Ukraine, because ultimately they're fighting for their survival, and we're praying that they'll be able to sustain their nationality and continue the openness to gospel that we've seen. So continue to pray for that, and just continue for open door. We're going into some areas where operating will be different. We will need to be a lot more careful, and because it could put some people in danger if we're too open about what's being done. So that creates challenges, because we want to report to our donors what's being done, but in some ways we may not be able to in great detail. So we're learning. So there are some challenges with that, but we're thankful for the opportunities and ask for prayers for that.
Well, that's a great note to end on. And yes, listeners, I'd ask you, keep EM in your prayers. That's the number one request that we would have, is to pray for us as a ministry, pray for the nations that we're blessed to serve, and all of the people that will be receiving God's word, and that it lands on good hearts, and just how we watch the church grow as a result of that. So if you're listening and you haven't subscribed, I'll tell you to do that first. Hit that subscribe button so that you won't miss a new episode when it drops. Also, give us a like, give us a rating, and give us a review. Write the review, and only if you say all good things about Brooke. That's what she wants. Just write the review
Only
and say
good
Brooke
things
is
about me.
fantastic. She is the best thing about that podcast. So just give us a review, and it does help. If you don't understand that, the more likes we get, the more ratings we get, the more this message will spread out, and people will find us as they search for podcasts. And we want to share this message with as many people as we can. So thanks again for being with us today. Bart, thanks for joining us. Love and appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Until next time, thanks for being with us on 5511 Podcast. This has been another episode of the 5511 Podcast, hosted by Dirk Smith and Brooke Kell. The 5511 Podcast is supported by EEM. EEM publishes, prints, and distributes Bibles and Bible-based materials in 35-plus nations and 25-plus languages, free to all. To learn more about how you can partner with EEM, visit EEM.org. Your support, whether through rating, reviewing, subscribing, or simply spreading the word about this podcast, is invaluable. Thanks for joining us.